Welcome to the Private Lender Podcast.
Hey everyone, Chris and Jason here. Thanks for checking out the Private Lenders Podcast. We're going to dive right into the origination scripting secrets that we, and mainly Jason, have developed over the years, because the reality in this business is that it's lead heavy. Getting a lot of inquiries, a lot of leads is what you want once you get to scale, so that you can get to the best deals that you can possibly fund, right? That's the name of the game. And there's a few things that we want to do in the scripting, and we want to see if there is a deal to be had. If this borrower and this property is going to work out, we want to build rapport with a local real estate investor, and we would like to collect some contact information if possible, and it typically is.
Good point. And all of those things can be accomplished very, very quickly. You know, a lot of folks in the Hard Money Mastermind, they'll reach out and, you know, they're in the weeds, or they're looking to hire an upfront person, and, you know, really they're just not getting all that much deal flow to begin with, so they should be able to handle it themselves. But then they get so surprised when we tell them how many deals and leads that we get on a monthly basis. And it's, you know, in the thousands. You know, each one of our offices in essence is looking at close to 1,000 leads, opportunities every month. And a lot of our borrowers are still repeat borrowers. So again, you know, they might not all be the hottest leads, but they're increasing their leads that we're trying to nurture into potentially a client. And that's what the goal is of this business. The more deals and the more looks you have, the better your deals are going to be along the way. So we had to kind of adapt into a process and a script that we could go through all of these extremely quickly. And typically, you know, it shouldn't take any longer than like a minute to 3 minutes, 5 at the most, right? Because you can ask a few trigger questions like, how much cash do you have? And if the answer is none, and they don't have any a cash partner or cross collateral, you can't do anything for them. So many lenders that don't have that much deal flow, they're in essence trying to figure out any way possible to make every lead work. And I see it all the time. And that was us early on, right? Phone's ringing. Cool. That's an opportunity. Let's see how we can make that work. In most traditional businesses, that is the case, right? Somebody walks into your store, you're going to sell them something. You got to sell them something. This is one of the only types of businesses where, you know, lots of people are raising their hands to do business with you, but unfortunately you can't do stuff with them. So during our origination script, you know, we have to act as sales guys and underwriters at the same time, right? We have to have our investor capital on, you know, to make sure we're protecting our company's investment and the capital investors' money. At the same time, we also have to, you know, be salesy enough, you know, that the borrowers want to do business with us. You know, we can't be like a stiff banker. So I wouldn't recommend, you know, following. And again, we've tried everything, internally run leads ourselves, had internal sales guys, had outsourced sales guys, had in-house, biz dev where they generated business. We had other ones that we generated leads for them and they called them. We had brokers send us deals. Like, we've tried everything. And to us, even if you have a good size operation, you know, you still should be able to handle a lot of these incoming leads yourself, especially at the beginning, because you need to get on the phone with people and know what their questions are to figure out what's up. If you're not the one that's talking to them at the beginning, chances are you're not getting the full story. And if you just have like a loan officer that's helping you internally, that's only is trying to get a commission, and they don't have an economic interest in if the loan performs, that's challenging. And I'm not saying that all loan officers obviously like that, but you gotta remember that. And at the same time, you want these deals to potentially close, but at the same time, you also got to make sure that you're doing it the right way. So again, you might not necessarily have to do this forever, but it's very, very manageable if you do it the right way. So let's just kind of start from the beginning, relating to the scripting of, you know, the first time they're reaching out to you. You obviously kind of want to run the conversation into your favor, meaning like, hey, what you got? You know, I got all the time in the world. Come to my office and let's chat. Like, we're not doing that. When people ask to come to the office to chat or to have coffee or lunch, no one's got time for that. It just doesn't work. You know, eventually it might get to the point where someone turns into a client and you're happy to do that, but you can't do that with everybody, especially when you're getting large quantities of leads. So you want to be real direct with them. And it's like, you know, thanks for calling, or, hey, I saw you filled out a loan application online. let's go through your project if you have a second. Is this going to be a purchase or is this a refinance on an existing project? It's like, oh yeah, this is a purchase that I have. Great. What's the property address, your purchase price, and your estimated rehab costs? Get right down to the point on that. And if they ask, well, I'm kind of just, I don't have anything yet, I'm trying to get a little bit more information, no problem. You can kind of skip down to where we'll get to in a second, provide them, what the terms are, because we're not hiding what our terms are. We're going to tell them what they are. We just have to control and frame the conversation to our liking. Typically, a lot of the first questions are, what are your terms? Because that's the only thing that they know to ask, right? And it's no problem. Happy to go through that. They do differ a bit. Tell me a little bit about your project. Is this a purchase that you're buying? What's that? What's the address, right? So we try to get the address, purchase price, and rehab costs. We want to make this thing very, very conversational instead of scripting. So let's say they provide the address, purchase price, and estimated rehab costs. We already know if they have it under contract or not. Typically I like to give them a compliment, like, hey, that seems like a decent project based off your numbers. And I'm actually very familiar with that area. We've actually done a few deals in that area, something like that. So I try to relate, I try to give them something nice. And again, based off their numbers, not off our numbers yet, based off their numbers, I try to compliment them. And then we try to relate the address to an area, something that is relatable to them. So or relatable to us, like, oh, we used to own a house over there, or my friend lives in that area, or we've done loans on that street, or something like that. Because then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I'm talking to Jason. He's the expert in this area. He told me he knows that area. Keep in mind, a lot of conversations that these folks have been having are with institutional backed lenders or nationwide lenders. So it's refreshing to them if you're a local lender and you actually know that area. It goes a long way. Let's say it's, whatever, in an area that you're not willing to lend in, you just don't want to lend in that area, you don't know that area. Very simply, I'm not sure this is going to be a great fit for you, a great fit for us for this project. It's actually an area that I don't really know real well, which also could just mean that you don't want to lend there, but that's a nicer way to say in that. That being said, what's your email address? And I can send you some details and terms on how our loans are structured, and hopefully we can work together on another deal, right? So that's a nice way. Like, someone says, hey, can you lend me on this property? It's not an area, maybe it's not a good area, it's not an area that you want to lend in. Like, that's a very easy way to turn somebody down, but still getting their email address and making them feel warm and comfy about you. Like, I didn't do anything bad. Like, I've literally turned down tens, maybe 100,000 people. And like, I've had 3 or 4 people ever that have been upset about it. Right. So let's say, it's in an area that you're comfortable in. Then I typically just go right in and say, typically what we'll do is we'll end up to 80% of the purchase price, 100% of the construction costs, but no higher than 65% of the after repair value. Based on your project, you would need, we would probably be able to lend, example, $100,000 towards your purchase, $50,000 towards your construction. What that means is what that means, it's a $150,000 loan with a $50,000 construction holdback. And I'd also tell them approximate cash to close. Approximate cash to close is going to be about $60,000. After I state that, you're going to learn everything that you need to know moving forward just based off that sentence, right? Because they'll be like, ooh, I was hoping to bring less cash to the table, right? Now, keep in mind, this whole thing so far has been less than 1 minute. I know we're skipping around a little bit, but that's been less than a minute, right? And that was a nice way to tell them approximately how much cash they're going to need based on their numbers. So they'll say, oh, I was hoping to bring a little bit less cash to the table. Okay, well, what were you thinking? 20, let's say 20 grand. Well, unfortunately, like, that's just not going to be enough, right? Like, it just won't be. So I'll be like, I'd love to help with 20 grand. Honestly, I don't think that's going to be enough. Do you happen to have like a cash partner or maybe, additional cross collateral that you could put into this deal? And, obviously if they say yes, you kind of go in that direction. If they say no, fortunately, this isn't going to be a great fit for us. That being said, what's your email address again? Let me just send you all my contact information and all our terms, and hopefully we can work together in the future. And it's like, oh, by the way, we used to do it like a live meetup group. By the way, we do a meetup group live. I don't know if you're ever in the Columbia, Maryland area, but if you're so, you should check it out. Or, hey, we do YouTube videos regularly. They're very helpful. You should check them out. Something like that, right? And giving them something of value. If they say they do have enough funds, then typically what we do, is, we go down this other path. If you like this style of content, do us a favor and smash that like button. Even better, subscribe to the channel and we'll keep this content coming. So it'll be like, seems like a project that we could help with. We've actually been lending we do some sort of credibility piece. We've actually been lending locally for the last 16 plus years. We work with a lot of big real estate investors, and I'm happy to help you with this project. When did you say you needed to close again? Right? Question mark. And then like that determines the urgency, right? And then it's usually like, we can make that work, no matter what. If they say it has to close in 3 days or a month, we're usually like, yeah, absolutely, we can make that work. Let me do this. Let me hop on MLS real quick just to double check some of the numbers. Because again, I'm only going off their numbers. We're only going off their numbers at this point. We're not even going off any of our own stuff. Now, typically I'm in front of a computer and I know some of these areas, but even if you don't, like, we're going off their numbers. If the deal doesn't work off their numbers, it's not going to work off your numbers, because your numbers are going to end up probably being more conservative to them. I just want to make sure that they have enough cash, they've got credit, they've got experience. So let's keep going through a little bit, right? Like, I don't need to know their credit or their experience or anything else. If it's an area that we don't lend in, right? We already turned them down. Or if it's a property or they don't have enough cash, right? Then I don't have to ask them those other questions. So, okay. So I'll, in essence, I'll be like, yeah, let me double check. But by the way, what was your credit score again? And then, I'll throw that in there. Sometimes the conversation goes that, oh yeah, I've been, flipping for a long time. I use this and so lender, or I've been doing rentals and I have this stuff, and I have these loans. Like, chances are, if they say that, they probably have good credit. So I might not even have to go down and ask that question, if it already happens conversational. But if they say it's good, then if they're like, oh, you have a 700 credit, I'd be like, sounds good. That works. No problem. If they're like, it's bad, I'll be like, well, honestly, most of our clients usually have a 700 credit score. We still might be able to help. That being said, you're probably going to need a larger down payment. How much more do you think you could put up if needed? Right. And depending on what direction they say, and I figure out where to take the conversation after that. If they say, oh, I don't have any more, it's like, yeah, unfortunately, like, or I'll ask if they have a credit partner or additional collateral. Like, yeah, unfortunately, I'd love to help. This isn't going to be a great fit. So that's usually kind of the direction that it goes to. Obviously I want to spend time for the folks that really have, number one, deals under contract, live deals. They have the cash to close. Keep in mind, we haven't even really talked about loan terms yet, even though that was their question, because it doesn't come up typically until that. They don't need to know the loan terms if we're turning them down. Right? Like, it doesn't come up to that. If they have the cash to close and it's something that they can make work, then the loan terms come into place. And, in essence, it's our loan terms are pretty simple. Same for everybody. It's a 12.99 interest rate and 3 points for a 1-year loan. You can pay the loan off anytime you want. Right? That's usually all we say. And, we start with that. And, if they want to move forward, I'll say, I'm like, no problem. I'll put our term sheet together for you. It will, in essence, show exactly what we already talked about in this conversation related to terms and things like that. That being said, can you send me your purchase contract, your ratified contract? That'll give me all the information I need, right? Because I'll have the buyer's name, their title company, their purchase price, their closing date. There's things like that, like everything for the most part that you need to fill out a term sheet or to get our term sheet together. But also I disclose to them that, hey, I'm going to hop online. I'm going to double check MLS to make sure it's a property that we're comfortable lending on. And, sometimes I reach back out and tell them that, yep, the numbers work based on what we talked about over the phone. Sometimes I'm like, hey, I took a look at the property. I think we're going to be closer to like the 140 range. So that's going to be 90 towards the purchase, 50 towards the construction. Best I can do. If you want to make that work, let me know. So, like, I'm not committing to them up front based on our verbal conversation. I'm just telling them a range of approximately where we're going to be at. And, as you're getting started with some of this, you'll put a range in place, right? You don't have to commit to anything, but give them something, that's, that makes sense, that's reasonable. Because again, the big part of that is a lot of these folks won't get to this level. A lot of these folks are going to fall out when they don't have enough cash or because they have crappy credit, right? So, in essence, if you can get these, let's call it 10 questions, is it a purchase or refi? What's the property address? What's the purchase price? Or the refi if it's a refinance. whether rehab costs, credit score, liquid cash, how much cash are you willing to put into the project, right? So those are two different questions. Experience, cross collateral, closing date, etc. Everything else works. We have the most experience doing this as a conversational piece instead of just like asking a script. We used to have, someone, an admin that would take all our incoming calls, and she would just ask this as a script. And like the sophisticated real estate investors, they didn't like it. They want to talk to a live person and have a real conversation. So that's what we do.
They want to talk to the expert. Like the people that you want to lend to, they want to talk to the expert. So let me jump in real quick and highlight a few of the do's and don'ts that Jason described in the process. So the things you want to do is get on the phone and build rapport. Let them know where you're located, how long you've been in business, the fact that you're familiar with the area where you're lending, because you most likely are, right? For one reason or another, you've done a deal there. Maybe you grew up not far away. Relate yourself to the borrower and to the property and as a local expert. Then next, you want to quickly get to see if the deal works cash-wise using their numbers, their purchase price, construction costs, and ARV. Like you haven't done any underwriting yet. That's going to come later. And get to that cash question as soon as you can in the right way, in a polite and tactful way, right? Also try to get that contact info, even if it's a turn down. And then go through the rest of the scripting related to the fees and the process and everything else and what happens next, basically. And some of the things we don't do, I think it's good to highlight too. You don't want to get into a situation where you're just exchanging short emails back and forth without getting the full picture, because that's just a time suck. People think that email is quicker than phone, but not necessarily. Not if it's going like that. You get on the phone and you figure out if you have a deal in under 5 minutes. That's the right way to do it. Also, what we don't do is we don't send them a loan application, give them homework, tell them to go fill it out, and then we'll get to it. We don't do that. We also don't start an in-depth underwrite, which is what a lot of lenders with not enough leads do. As soon as they get a deal, they just start underwriting the hell out of it. And it's like, hold on, we're not there yet. You don't need to do that yet. Just talk to them about their position and everything else and go through the script and see if they can make the deal work. And once they agree verbally, then you can do some homework. Then you can issue a term sheet, all of that, right? That's another thing that lenders make the mistake of doing is they think that any loan quote needs to be in writing. And that's an inefficient way to do it because a lot of loan quotes, people just don't accept. It's a numbers game. So you don't want to spend time putting a term sheet together for them to just say no. Just have the conversation, talk about the loan amount and the price and everything else. See if you can make a deal and build a relationship. And to kind of echo what Jason was saying before, there isn't time to meet with every lead that comes in, but I think it's very important to meet with everyone you're actually going to lend to. And we've gotten a little bit lazy about this over the years, but for a long time, we would meet people at the property. Like once we have, a signed term sheet, we have a deal, and for the inspection, we'd meet them at the property. And we also went through a phase where we would have new clients after they closed their first loan with us come in for a lunch. We'd have a catered lunch here in the office. And that was time and money well spent. Absolutely. And building those relationships that hopefully turn into repeat business for many years to come, right? That's the whole game. So yeah, I hope that gives you guys some shortcuts and allows you to be more efficient and effectively get to whether or not you have a deal in a short amount of time. That's the name of the game. Build some relationships along the way. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed Private Lenders Podcast. We will see everyone inside the mastermind group. If you haven't done so already, you can create a free account at hardmoneymastermind.com, and we'll see you next time on the podcast.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast. Please note that the opinions stated by all the speakers on this show are only opinions and not intended for legal, financial, or accounting advice. Please make sure to always check with your own legal, accounting, and financial professionals. If you enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast, we'd appreciate it if you would spread the word. Make sure to check out hardmoneymastermind.com, the #1 free community for new and experienced private and hard money lenders.